Paige Bechtle.
And my name is Natalia, Colasurdo.
And today we're here at ASI Architectural Systems Inc. in the ASI lab. And we're talking to Grace Jeffers and Nancy Jackson. So first we're going to get a quick introduction from them, talk about their roles and how it can roll over into what we're going to interview them about from a student's perspective. So Grace, would you like to start?
Yes, my name is Grace Jeffers. I'm a design historian and a materials specialist.
I'm Nancy Jackson, and I'm co-founder of ASI Architectural Systems, and my role now is Chief Creative Officer, and I'm responsible for all the sales and marketing collateral in our company.
Wow, that's really great. Do you want to begin talking about how you two came to meet or how this partnership began?
We met actually because I wrote an article about yes, about the Architectural Systems was the first company where you could get really the decorative gouged wood panels in the 90s. And I was an editor of the Architectural Building Products magazine, and I wrote an article about this show, about the product line, and that's how we first met.
I remember that. That was a fabulous article, and you really captured what we were doing. We were really bringing in products and material collections that were on trend and really dimensional and textured panels that hadn't been introduced into the commercial arena to the A&D community.
So I see, like, from that point on and forward too, you guys have carried a lot of different roles and how they relate, especially to both your different professions, kind of too. I'm curious, Grace, to hear a little bit about your writing background. I think that's an interesting way that you can actually conversate about what we do, and it's really important to be able to express the kind of things that we're trying to make either viable or educational to the people around us. So I think that's a really important aspect that you are able to carry. Is that something you've always had in you?
Yes, actually it's something I've done for a long time. I actually went to art school, and even in art school I wrote a lot. And then I went to the Bard Graduate Center for Studies in the Decorative Arts, and I wanted to learn. So after I went to art school, I actually designed products, and I would sell like patterns to printers that would become wall covering in textiles and things. And I worked with Maya Romanoff and learned a lot about materials, but I really wanted to know, like, what are the elements of Chinese design? What are the elements of the French style? And so I went to Bard to learn more about those things. And even though I would see things, I learned to describe them and write about them.
I think that's very important, especially in our field. We're constantly trying to sell something and trying to explain ourselves and why we chose this pattern over that pattern, why we chose this type of texture instead of this texture. So it's really important, and I guess I owe it to you that, like, that's really a great specific point that you picked up. It's being very detailed, I guess, in that sense.
I wanted to understand.
Yeah.
I wanted to understand, and one of the things I did was I spent 10 years of my life working on an encyclopedia, and so you want to see the things that we only have words for. And the thing that was so great about Architectural Systems Inc. was that I could see the things, that it was the only showroom I know of where they have such a diversity of materials and products and surfaces. So that is really what forged our several decade friendship.
Yes.
But what I do think is that designers think visually, and we think with the senses. But the clients tend to be verbal thinkers. So that is a bridge that has to be gapped, right? Or you're going to be to investors that want the visual appeal, but know why. You know, they need the logic behind. It can't just be a visual exercise for them.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of frustration when we don't understand something. And
I
that's where
think that's the
happen.
challenge for the designer, to be able to articulate to the client what why they are selecting surface materials especially. And I think that the synergy between Grace and myself and our companies is really based on the love of materials and what they evoke and what they say. And materials are very powerful. They can transcend the brand. They create memorable spaces, which is really the essence of what you want to achieve, because whether it's a residential home, if it's a retail environment, a hotel, or even a restaurant, you want people to come back again and again. Because, that's what makes the world go around, the business of design.
And you were talking about not only client to designer or designer to client, but also, I guess, you speaking about how Grace might have written about your business, and how do you pick up on those things that she had said? Do you pay attention as a business and wanting to be successful? You pay attention to what people are talking about in your industry, so you also have to pick up on what the audience wants. It might not be a face-to-face client, but you need to appeal to those people that you're not even coming face-to-face with.
think, we've been in business for 30 years, and I think the success of that longevity has always been, and my personal favorite, is understanding the psychographics of the brand. So even if it's a corporate office entity, they want a certain environment, and materials speak to that. That can be iconic or signature material that represents the brand. And if it's ecological, just that subtle, sustainable material, or even a color. What we've been able to do is customize and develop materials and see the possibilities in that to deliver that expectation and what the designer wants to provide for the client. And I think that's the essence of what we do, and that's very important. But the challenge always I felt for the designers was to be able to sell it to the client, because they're not always visual, and they don't always anticipate what they're going to receive, or if they get it, maybe they change their mind. So it's really being flexible and really getting a grasp of what the expectation is to provide that material materials that's going to satisfy the design vision.
And going off of that, I think about sustainability that you talked about, and the root of the product, and I think that's where you originally were drawn to the company of ASI, just further sustainability in the products that you guys offer. And would you say that's the backbone of your company as a philosophy?
Yeah, I think we were very early on supporters of sustainable products, and they weren't very attractive.
Right.
At the inception of them, they were like rubber floor from, recycled car tires. They were really not aesthetically pleasing. And also they were costly.
Yeah.
So that had to balance out.
And not always durable. Like, not always the performance aspect of recycled materials had to be really developed, right?
I think it's assumed now that manufacturers know that they have to have certain, policies, and they have to be able to do certain, they're required to do that to stay competitive and be selected. The bar gets higher and higher. It's
Trying to keep up with those.
right,
trying
then
to
they
keep up
want
with
to
that.
know reclamation. So it's, you're not ever going to get to where you want to be, but I think that everybody's mindful that they have to produce ecologically correct product.
Right.
It could be from many different ways. We distributed hardwood flooring for many years that was being produced in a prison. So that made it very cost effective because they only brought out prisoners when they had work. It became a very successful program, and they were able to be vertically integrated. They brought in hardwoods, and they knew every single process. They learned to trade when they went out. So that's socially responsible. So that's the aspect of sustainability.
I think it's about finding that happy medium. Like, us as designers, there's what's trending, there's what's actually happening, and there's also what's good for the environment, like ecological, and I think it's like finding that balance in between like what you believe in and like what you not like have to keep up with, but I guess.
And not having to sacrifice design aesthetics, and that's where it's the designer's job to not lose that sight of that, no matter what requirements that you have to meet, I think.
Well, I think what happens is if it's aesthetically correct, sometimes the price point is a little different. And to overcome that, the government created standards where they gave tax incentives, and that's where you had the LEED. But LEED has changed also, and now it's more about wellness and biophilic design and bringing in greenery into the space. And a lot of our dimensional wood panels lend themselves to that, new trend of
Yeah.
bringing nature into the space, so.
Absolutely.
Do you guys find yourself trying to keep up with trends? Are you kind of making your own trends? Do you pay attention to those things, like what's happening around you, to your other competitors, or are you trying to
I think
find
we've
your own?
always been forerunners of, I think we've always had that collective eye that we knew what was happening. I think we've had a pulse.
Yeah, I can attest that Architectural Systems, in terms of, in being a company that sells multiple materials, has always been a leader in design. That you've definitely always had the eye candy before anybody else. And I do want to say that there is a language to materials. And this idea of using materials to represent a brand values. And Nancy is one of the best translators. She's able to really get to the core when she works with designers and with brands. She's really able to translate their values into materials, into color, texture, aesthetic values that are in keeping with the brand. The question of sustainability is really interesting because I find there are two different schools of designer. There are designers that really are visually driven, and they're thinking in terms of color, texture, form, surface, luster, finish. And then there are the designers that really are driven by issues of sustainability, and those come first. And so I think it's important to understand where your priorities are and then move to the other side from there, understanding that both those.
Designers are still confused about even where they want to be. And I think you
Yes.
have a lot of wonderful, you've given presentations where you try to clarify it and put it in a way that they can make decisions easily.
Yes, well, what I try to do in my work is take bigger concepts and make them bigger issues. I study a lot of materials resourcing issues and I try to make them, actually I've been very successful in making them very accessible
Yes.
to any designer's mind. Actually LEED 4 has really, I've been informed that a lot of my research on wood has been adapted in the changes in the LEED 4 standard. So the ways of thinking about materials. So that's what I do well. It's like, well, what do you need to be thinking about wood? What do you need to be thinking about? Laminate is one of my favorite materials, and I have a long history of working with Wilson Art, for which I'm very grateful for that relationship. And
So my name is Paige
it's
Bechtle,
And my name is
how
Natalia
to
Colasurdo.
approach
and today we're here at ASI Architectural
topics
Systems Inc.
is
in
what a lot of my CEUs are about, right? Where Nancy is really about,
My CEU is about the power of materials.
yes,
And how they can translate a brand and they can, create a sense of place.
Now, what kind of knowledge and like this education, like we take different courses at school, like in university, regarding LEED, and like we touch on sustainability and aspects of adaptive reuse, especially within the interior program. What do you think is the most prominent aspects that should be reaching the schools and maybe those classes that we probably didn't get to maybe in university?
Do you think like these classes are kind of mandatory and like everyone in design school should be learning about this because some schools probably don't or even maybe not touch upon it as well.
Until you're studying for your exams and some things become more relevant than others.
I think it's, comes from the culture of the firm that you ultimately find a place at, what their position is and the position of the client, because sometimes it's client-driven, so it's what's the culture at the firm, I think, what's really important to their values. And
I sit on an ASID council that is making a roadmap for education on the professional level, really saying if you're gonna be a licensed professional, what should your knowledge base be? And I can tell you outright that more knowledge about materials needs to be gained.
Yes.
And even practical knowledge about how things are installed, how one material meets another material, about specifying multiple materials in the same installation. Wellness is
key.
huge, and it's really in its infancy. Really, we're only beginning. We've just kind of realized, oh, wellness is a thing. Where are we going to go from here? And I would also say practice of design is a big thing, that we know that there needs to be more education about how to run your business. So talk about sustainability. So your business alone is sustainable, right? Like, and how to, that's very important to the community and very needed in the community.
I think that's very important that you said that because I find myself, I was lucky enough to have an intern. I've been interning over the past couple of summers while I'm still at school, and these are the things that I have learned through my internship. But people or other students who have not had that opportunity to intern will not know those things like materials and how reps work and how all those things are applied. And it's all that lingo that you pick up in an office and you don't learn it till you get there. But I think if we can have that preconceived knowledge before we actually step in, will be that much more beneficial.
I always said, in our other showroom, we used to give student tours all the time. And the one thing that I always stress was they don't teach this at design school, the design business etiquette. And it really is about the reps and the relationships and how important that is, that you don't owe a rep a specification necessarily, but if they do follow up to find out why or why not you're using that material, the etiquette is to answer them. Well, it was too expensive, or the client changed its mind, because you don't want to burn your bridges. You don't want to ask, and then, because studies show, first the designers look online, they speak to their colleagues, but the next step, really, they want that face-to-face interaction and that tactile, understanding of the material, and they rely on the reps. So the reps can make or break you, and because the nature of our business is problematic, and the best laid plans, Grace, you'll have a problem on a job site. So who do you call? Not Superman, you call the rep. And so
They're basically Superman.
if you have the right footing in your
Yeah.
relationship, of course. So that's really important. And I think that's overlooked, that reliance on people in the industry that are not your colleagues, that, you really need that business etiquette knowledge.
I think it also branches off of that, like the whole rep side of things. People don't even know that's not like a job, but people might start off as designers. I've talked to reps before that they ended up going into the rep field because whether they can't do a 9-to-5 desk job, they like being out and being a personable, dynamic. It shows how versatile this industry really is. There's a job for everybody and every kind.
Yes. That usually happens in a down cycle. They become reps.
I can appreciate more the conversations that I start to have with reps though more often, and especially a lot of these interviews too, I think have provided some of our other hosts with that opportunity to talk to people, understanding, because we don't really get to have conversations with you as often as we wish. Whether we were in a firm and we talk to our project managers and things like that, but there's another level of respect that's really nice, and to hear your perspective on things, it's just definitely helpful in every single aspect.
And I'm glad to hear Nancy talk about the etiquette between the specifier and the rep, because reps really do so much for the, and for
The
the
designer.
community.
Yes.
And in terms of like sampling, lunch and
Sponsoring
learn.
events.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, all the events that they sponsor, and it's very interesting to me because, even looking at this from the ASID, you know, the ASID council perspective, that if this was in the medical profession, it would be illegal to do how much architectural specification reps do for their customers. And yet there's very little conversation about, I'm gonna bring this up at the next ASID meeting, about what is the proper etiquette for
The relationship.
because it is a relationship, right? You need that rep, they also need you. So how do you respect each other and work together, form a partnership with your reps is very important.
It shouldn't be so one-sided. That's the point.
No,
So-
and what I actually recommend often to firms is to have fewer suppliers and have better relationships with those suppliers. Like, because you will if you talk about, you know, lead or wellness or anything, you're gonna be leaning on your reps for that information, right? You need them to help you gather everything you need to sell your job, not just samples, more that goes beyond samples. And you need them to help you sell your project to your customer. So, there is that question, what should your reciprocal relationship be?
And the business thread of that continues into the architect and designer historically does not purchase the materials. It goes out to bid. So the rep protects your design intent because they're the ones, you know, in the trenches that are making sure that it gets purchased, that the specification follows through to the installation.
All the way to the end. They're there
Yes.
all the way, every step of the way.
Yes, because, you know, contractors like to switch specifications, they like to, you know, maybe they have the same kind of material in their, you know, warehouse from another job, they don't wanna buy new, whatever it is.
You know, that's
You know,
really-
my joke was like, maybe their brother-in-law sells it, so, you know, you have to always, you know, respect that they're protecting your design intent. And another issue
Level of trust there.
is, you know, sometimes the budgets change throughout the project. So to give the opportunity to that rep that created that, you know, specification with you, the opportunity to provide an alternate before you go right to someone else or a contractor come up with an alternate. Oh, the owner doesn't wanna pay $5 a square foot for that hardwood, here's an alternate. You know, to say to the representative, the budget changed.
Here's that
Do
problem
you
solving.
have, you know, another type of material? Maybe it's engineered differently, it could be, you know, less expensive and still have that, give them the opportunity. Maybe they can't, but that's okay because you reached out to them. So that's the etiquette part.
And it's also, it's smart for the designer, really, it's smart
Yes.
to say, you know, reps are not just sample runners. They really are problem solvers.
They're invested in the
And
success of the project.
They are invested in the
Because
success
that's
of the
how they
project.
get paid.
So you should reach out to them and say, I'm having this issue, because they'll all go back to corporate or they'll help you with material selection within their line and be able to solve problems.
Right.
I think it boils down to, again, like, so basic communication skills is what we need to
Yes.
be good
Yes.
at. And,
Yes.
like, on our emails, on our whatever way we are communicating
Yes.
with them.
And reciprocity, this idea that it's a mutual relationship. It's a mutual, and you know, this is gonna sound simplistic and maybe a little catty, but it's as simple as this. I've sat through many, many lunch and learns, usually because I'm the speaker, but I'm not the host, right?
Yeah.
And I cannot believe the ends, for just as simple as this, a rep will ask the firm, what are the dietary restrictions in the firm? Inevitably, it is as long as your arm.
Right.
And nobody, so they come in and there's like the
Gluten,
kosher
vegan.
and the gluten-free and the
And the
vegan
vegan.
and the no vegan, no fruit. And
No
very
peanut.
seldom do I ever hear any designer say thank you.
Oh.
Because what happens is like, not only is this poor rep having to bring, you know, whatever, but they provide this lunch, but then they went the extra mile to have the special meals made for every.
The accommodation.
And there's just not even a thank you. It's like there should at least be a thank you.
I
As
think
simple
it's-
as that. Thank you for hosting this lunch and learn for us.
I think it's that like idea of like, yeah, they need us, but that's not the case. Like setting points, not the case.
But on the flip side too, and this is something I tell designers all the time, this is why because I lecture a lot about sustainability issues, and I tell designers, you are the front line of change. Because if you start telling manufacturers, we want products that, you know, we want ethical, healthy products, and you will push change through. So the forefront of change really comes with you, because a lot of companies want to please you. So, but then, you know, the other thing is rewarding change, right? Like if you're gonna say, oh, we're not going to, like with the red list or something, right? That to say, once manufacturers do make change, to reward the change, right? This is something else that in somehow the hustle bustle of everything is constantly overlooked. This is so nice, I get to get this off my chest. Right? Because I see it all the time and I'm like.
Well, you know what, if you have this opportunity to express this on a student level perspective.
yeah, you're just getting ahead of the game.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
we're
yes.
trying to embed in the student's mind how important it is to understand the business and we're in a sense getting ahead of it, having this conversation with you right now and
Right.
hopefully making a change like just sooner rather than later.
Yes, you could be the ambassadors of business etiquette.
Actually, I would love that. I think that's a great idea. I love it.
Yeah, I think the culture of
Starting
the
something
market-
new.
This is, I really always said this, you know, I wonder now with, you know, as you asked if we were on Material Bank, and we are, but I wondered, you know, if this everything's like online and this and that, is my point of view about business etiquette, is it antiquated?
Yeah,
But it's not, manners never ever go out of style,
It's not.
you know? And good business doesn't go out of style. And these are things that will be to your advantage if you have the knowledge and can implement that change of that, really bridging a more reciprocal relationship and leaning on the expertise of a representative to work with you to help you achieve your design vision, but more importantly, protect it throughout the process, from specification through the bidding to the installation, because often you're on to the next project, because that's what you do, you design, you know. I'll just share a story from my early career when I pounded the pavement every day. I had a hospitality designer I worked with that did the St. Regis hotels, and before they were bought out by Starwood, so there were many locations. And she called me to bring a sample for one of them, and then I said to her, oh, while I'm here, Marcia, what's the status of this location, that location? She said, oh, Nancy, you're always selling. I said, oh, Marcia, you're always designing. And you know, that's what we do. So I got all the information I needed, and that's how you move forward.
I think those will coming to fruition with those types of conversations and relationships. It comes with having a closer relationship that makes those things easier to just be able to say whether that item is actually spec'd or not. If you have a conversation often, or if you're actually picking up a phone call to call your rep just to say hello and not actually just for a business deal transaction, that's what makes all of this a lot smoother.
Yes.
I think it betters your understanding of that product because now you gain that knowledge that they gave you, and it
Yes.
helps you communicate better in the future with future products and materials just like that.
Of course, you're informed and you're knowledgeable, and then you bring that on to your next project, and you grow from there, because.
And really at some of the top firms I've seen, they'll invite their favorite reps to their Christmas party, you know, or the one of the principal's birthday parties or something, that it's not uncommon that it is a personal, it is a genuine personal relationship. Which is again why I believe that you should have, you know, this idea of having, you know, 400 product lines in your library. It's like have fewer manufacturers, have deeper relationships with them, and it facilitates
I think you also
these-
understand then what you want more and what you want more out of different products or manufacturers. That's how you can like kind of narrow that down in a sense.
So it looks like we're running out of time, but
Yeah.
we really appreciated the conversation, especially bridging the gap between design and sales, and just understanding how important this conversation is to have.
How important it is to sustain a business. So if you wouldn't mind telling the folks who are watching how we can reach you on social media or anything like that, if you'd like to share.
Our handle is ARC Systems, ARCHSYSTEMS, and we'd love you to tag, follow, and share.
And you can reach me at gracejeffers.com, that's GRACEJEFFERS, and on Instagram and Twitter, I'm at the Grace Jeffers.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. This has been another episode of The Student's Perspective. Bye.
Bye.